Forensic detectives have re-examined one of the most famous crimes of all time.
You mutilated her body.
A murder shocking in its brutality.
What was there was mass of flesh. No head, no arms, no legs.
It was the first trial by media. The first trial dominated by forensic evidence. It was the trial of Dr. Crippen.
You will be hanged by the neck until you are dead.
Now, a new investigation using DNA and previously confidential documents will cast serious doubt on Crippen's conviction.
I'm running scenarios through my mind of planted evidence.
The facts revealed exclusively in this film will rewrite one of the most important cases in criminal history. The body parts were found in a shallow grave, inside a suburban home. 39 Hilldrop Crescent in London's Camden Town. The police who made the discovery, even hardened detectives, were horrified. They reported that the victim had first been poisoned and then filleted like a piece of meat. It was July 1910, and news of the gruesome find caused a sensation. Only a generation earlier, Londoners had been terrorized by the killings of Jack the Ripper. This murder was as horrific as anything the Ripper carried out. Still more alarming, the prime suspect seemed such a gentleman. A doctor living in suburbia. Yet it seemed he was capable of poisoning his wife and then slicing her body into small pieces. Dr. Hawley Harvey Crippen.
You have been convicted upon evidence that could leave no doubt in the mind of any reasonable man. You cruelly poisoned your wife.
Crippen's crime has inspired many books and films. His wax figure still stands in London's Chamber of Horrors. No one has seriously questioned Crippen's guilt. Until now. John Trestrail is a forensic toxicologist, an authority on poisoning. And he is part of the team now revisiting the case of the most famous poisoner in history.
Hello, sir. Morning. I need to go to Hilldrop Crescent in Camden.
Trestrail's textbook on poisoning is used by the FBI in modern murders. One key factor in this century-old case has always haunted him.
The thing that keeps me coming back to this Crippen case is the dismemberment of the body. It does not make sense to dismember one's victim. This is the only case I know of where the victim was dismembered. A poisoner attempts to get a natural death certificate signed and walk away from the crime.
For many years, John Trestrail has been fascinated by the contradictions in the Crippen case. 7 years ago, he launched what has been a complete re-examination of all the known evidence. Crippen was an American. Like John Trestrail, he came from Michigan. He arrived in London in 1897, selling homeopathic patent remedies. Homeopathy had just caught on in England and made Crippen a wealthy man.
He was making the sum of $220,000 in today's dollars. That's a lot of money for selling patent medicine.
The Crippens rented a flat in London's West End. Outwardly, they didn't seem like a couple soon to feature in one of the most infamous domestic murders of all time. But there were warning signs. Cora Crippen, also American, was 19 when she'd married the doctor, 12 years her senior. Now she was in her 30s, an aspiring actress. He was middle-aged and serious, and they'd nothing in common.
She was very showy, very flamboyant and flirtatious. Hawley, on the other hand, very quiet, non-confrontational, just a complete opposite in the marriage.
In 1905, the couple's income suddenly plummeted. Homeopathy had fallen out of fashion. The Crippens were forced down market to what was then a rundown crescent of rented properties in North London. John Trestrail has come here to begin an investigation, re-examining century-old evidence using modern forensic techniques, raising fundamental questions. Above all, were the body parts in the cellar really Cora Crippen? Forensic toxicologist John Trestrail is seriously questioning the famous case of Dr. Crippen. Did he really poison, then dismember his wife? He was hanged for her murder in 1910. The trial transcript records the chain of events leading up to Cora Crippen's disappearance in January of that year.
Cora was drinking heavily. She'd been known to have an affair. He went to work, came home, and she was gone. That's what he claimed in court. They had a fight. She says, "I'm leaving you. I will never be back. You will never find me."
In February, Crippen wrote to Cora's friends saying that she was visiting relatives in America. 6 weeks later, he wrote again saying Cora had been taken ill with pneumonia.
And they said, "Oh, that's terrible. Keep us posted." He said, "Okay," later on, "She died in America."
Crippen wasn't telling the truth. His life was more complicated than it seemed. The 47-year-old doctor, so outwardly respectable, was sleeping with his 26-year-old secretary, Ethel Leneve.
Ethel and Hawley had an affair for at least 3 years before Cora Crippen disappears. She was young enough to be his daughter, actually. She was quiet, demure. She gave him the emotional love Cora could not.
With Cora gone, they lived as man and wife at Hilldrop Crescent for 6 months. Until 10 a.m. on Friday the 8th of July. Chief Inspector Walter Dew was from Scotland Yard and one of their most experienced detectives. As a young officer, he'd been assigned to Whitechapel, to the squad hunting Jack the Ripper.
Cora's friends took their concerns to Scotland Yard and said, "We're a little suspicious. Our friend has disappeared. Her husband said that she's dead in America. We can find no proof of that. We would like you to look into it."
Crippen said he needed to talk man-to-man. His wife had left him for a younger lover, so he'd invented a cover story to hide his embarrassment. Crippen said he had nothing to hide and showed the officers all around the house. Even the coal cellar. Everything seemed in order, and the officers returned to Scotland Yard.
On Monday, Inspector Dew shows up to ask Crippen some more questions and finds the premises vacant.
Had Crippen and Ethel Leneve fled the scene. The officers suspected that the answer could lie somewhere inside this house.
He happens to pry up one of the stones in the floor of the coal cellar. Pokes down 4 or 5 inches. They find decomposing stuff. It's not a body in here, it's pieces. It's stomach and tissue and hair and some clothes, and it's just a mess. They probably hadn't seen stuff like that since the Ripper was at work.
Jack the Ripper always eluded the police. The pressure was now on to ensure that this killer didn't slip through their fingers. Within days, the hunt for Crippen and his lover would be splashed on front pages all over the world. Amid hundreds of mistaken sightings, Scotland Yard received a message from a liner in the Atlantic.
Have strong suspicion that Crippen and accomplice are among passengers.
Captain Henry Kendall of the steamship Montrose had seen the wanted poster before he sailed. Something about two of his passengers, a Mr. Robinson and his teenage son, roused his suspicions. Why didn't the youngster's clothes fit properly? And why was he forever clutching his father's hand?
Moustache shaved off. Accomplice dressed as a boy.
Kendall was sure it was them. He snapped this photo, Ethel on the left in her ill-fitting clothes. Kendall's ship was one of the first to be fitted with the brand new Marconi wireless. But for that, Crippen might well have escaped. By now, the Montrose was halfway to Canada. Chief Inspector Dew boarded a faster ship, the Laurentic, and the chase was on, followed closely by the world's press.
I don't think any murder in history had been covered that much by the newspapers. It was being read about all over the world.
Captain Kendall quickly struck a deal with the papers, kept close watch on the couple, and sent updates every few hours. Unbeknown to the fugitives, they were now world famous. The papers even reported which book Crippen was reading. A whodunit about a London murder.
Hawley and Ethel are the last to know what's going on. The whole world's watching, waiting, anticipating.
The Laurentic caught up, and both liners dropped anchor just off the coast of Quebec. Dew came aboard. For readers around the world, this was a gripping soap opera. The next installment would be at the Old Bailey, when Crippen went on trial for his life. 4,000 people applied for 80 courtroom seats. On Tuesday, the 18th of October 1910, there was standing room only. The crowds came for the sex scandal, but they'd also hear a strange new term at this trial: forensic science. Nobody saw Crippen kill Cora, and he hadn't confessed. The whole case against him had to be based on what was found in the coal cellar. There was no head to identify the body, no fingerprints, no sex organs. Just some skin and internal organs, some strands of hair, and a few scraps of pyjama cloth. It wasn't at all clear that this was Cora Crippen. Crippen claimed his wife had run off with a lover. He'd fled simply because he'd panicked. He had no idea what the material in the cellar was or how it got there. Crippen's lawyers said you couldn't hang a man on such scanty evidence. But then the prosecution produced their key witness, a forensic pathologist, whose evidence left no room for doubt.
Hawley Harvey Crippen.
The jury was out 27 minutes, and they walked back in and said, guilty.
You cruelly poisoned your wife?
The new forensic science had convicted Crippen. The hanging was to be at Pentonville Prison, just round the corner from Hilldrop Crescent. Crippen protested his innocence in a series of letters to Ethel